My name is Daniel Souza. And for a while I believed in logic. I believed that the world made sense as long as you stayed alert, followed rules, and kept your feet on solid ground. But I learned that at night, when the world is silent, the rules change. It started 2 years ago. I had just lost my job in logistics and needed something fast. Bills were piling up and the night shift paid better. Danger pay, they called it. I didn't ask why. I didn't care. The job seemed simple. Watch over a building downtown. 7 floors, abandoned after a fire destroyed the upper structure. The place was once a big commercial tower built in the 70s, concrete, glass, and endless bureaucracy. Rumors said it burned from inside out, a fire that began without wiring, gas, or even human error. Some said it started on the 7th floor. And that it ended something. They gave me a flashlight, a basic radio, a badge with my name, and a little metal key that opened every door. My first night was uneventful. Just a cold concrete shell with echoing halls. I made my rounds at midnight, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., then again at 6. Logged everything. Heard a few rats. Some wind through the cracked glass. That was it. Until the second week. That's when I noticed the doors. Every night I check every floor. All doors locked. But on the third night of that second week, one door on the 4th floor was wide open. I swore I had locked it earlier. I walked in. The room was empty. No windows, just peeling paint and broken office desks. But in the dust on the floor, I saw something. Footprints. Bare feet. Heading in. But none coming out. I thought it was a squatter. Maybe someone homeless found shelter inside. That would explain it, right? I reset the lock, made a note. But the next night, the door was open again. I told my supervisor. He brushed it off. Don't get paranoid. Buildings like that make noise. They shift. They move. Just keep logging it. I did. But the logs started disappearing. The 5th night, the door was open again. And this time, someone, or something, had scratched the number 7 into the paint on the wall. Over and over. Carved deeply, violently. As if whoever did it was desperate to be heard. Or, obeying something. That's when I started hearing the voice. It wasn't loud. Not at first. Just a whisper behind me in the stairwell. I turned, nothing. Every time I climbed past the 5th floor, it was there. A low, trembling voice. It never said anything clear, until one night it said my name. My full name. Exactly how it's written on my badge. Daniel? I stopped breathing. No one else was in the building. At least no one living. The 7th floor had been off limits since day one. Even the structural engineers wouldn't go up there. Said it was too unstable, something about the steel beams warping from the fire. But something wanted me up there. The next night, my flashlight kept flickering whenever I passed the 6th floor. My radio clicked on and off. A cold draft blew down the stairwell that shouldn't have existed. All the windows were sealed. That's when I saw it. The reflection. There was a broken window near the stair landing between the 6th and 7th floor. I caught a glimpse of movement in the glass. I thought it was my shadow. Until it waved at me. I didn't wave. I ran. Locked myself in the booth downstairs. Stayed there until dawn. I considered quitting. But money was tight and something in me, curiosity, maybe stupidity, wanted to understand what was happening. So the next night I climbed to the 7th floor. The door wasn't just open. It was missing. Ripped off the hinges. Inside, it was colder than anywhere in the building. I could see my breath. And in the middle of the floor, surrounded by soot, someone had drawn a circle. Symbols I didn't recognize, harsh, angular shapes, burned into the tiles. And on the far wall, a message, written in what looked like rust. Or blood. He watches through the cracks. My flashlight died instantly. The moment the beam touched the writing, it fizzled out. The batteries were new. I checked. Then the breathing started. Slow. Like a beast sleeping. But there was nothing there. I turned to run. But in the corner of my eye, I saw it. A figure. At least 8 feet tall. Skin pale and stretched. No mouth. No eyes. But it faced me. My legs locked. And then, I heard the voice again. Not behind me. Not from the radio. From inside my skull. You opened it. I screamed and bolted. Didn't stop until I hit the exit doors and vomited on the street outside. They fired me the next day. Said I abandoned post. I didn't care. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Weeks passed. I moved in with my sister on the other side of town. Got therapy. Tried to rebuild. But then the radio started turning on at 2:13 a.m. every night. Static. And then my name. Mirrors in the house fogged over, with handprints on the inside. And the number 7 started showing up. On windows. On my bathroom mirror. Scratched into the wall near my bed. And once, God help me, carved into my skin. I woke up bleeding. No explanation. Just the number. I don't sleep anymore. Sometimes I see the figure standing outside the apartment window. 7th floor. Always at night. He's waiting. And the worst part? Sometimes I feel like I'm waiting too. If you're hearing this, don't brush it off. This isn't just another haunted hospital story. It's a warning. Because what happened to me is still happening. My name is Lidisha Andrade. I'm 31 years old, a nurse for over a decade. I've worked in ERs, ICUs, maternity, but nothing prepared me for what I faced during that night. It happened at São Lucas Hospital in the northern part of the city. A crumbling building, part of it still under renovation. I was called in to cover a shift in Ward G, a forgotten, almost deserted wing mostly used for terminal patients with no family left. I clocked in at 11 p.m. Quiet night, they said. Just 3 patients, an intubated elderly man, a woman in a deep coma, and a young man dying of cancer. At around 2 in the morning, the atmosphere changed. The hallway lights flickered, then went out completely. A few seconds later, the generator kicked in. I shrugged it off as a glitch, but I couldn't shake the unease that settled in my chest. I checked on the young man, Leandro, 26 years old. Everything looked stable. Heart rate fine. Breathing normal. But then, I noticed his eyes. Wide open. Staring at me. He was heavily sedated. He shouldn't have been conscious. And yet he whispered, "She's right behind you." I spun around. No one. I looked back, his eyes were shut. Peaceful. Like it never happened. That was when the nightmare truly began. The call button from room 217 rang, the coma patient's room. I went there quickly. Everything seemed in place, except her heart rate had spiked. Way above normal. I adjusted the monitors, made a note, and returned to the ward. But then I saw it, the morgue door, slightly open. No one used that morgue anymore. That wing hadn't seen a death in weeks. With a flashlight in hand, I approached. Pushed the door open. The cold inside wasn't normal. It was the kind that settles in your bones. There was a gurney in the center. Empty. But the floor showed fresh drag marks, like something heavy had been moved recently. And on the wall, smeared in a dark substance. She never left. I ran. Tried calling for help, radio dead. Phone lines silent. Then came the voice. Whispering. Thin. Feminine. Lidisha. It was my voice. But, not mine. I left the ward and rushed to the security office. Asked to see the surveillance footage. The guard hesitated. Cameras in Ward G went offline around midnight, he said. Still, he managed to pull some partial clips. And there, in the corridor, a woman, wearing an old nurse's uniform, 1950s style, barefoot, head lowered, walking slowly past each room. Then she stopped, turned to the camera. No eyes, just a blank, pale face. The footage glitched. The monitor blacked out. I ran out of there. The next morning I filed for transfer. I didn't sleep for 3 days. Even now, I avoid hospitals. Sometimes I wake up with bruises, long finger-shaped marks on my arm. And often late at night I hear it again. Close. Almost inside my skull. She's still here. My name is Ricardo Mendez, and for nearly 15 years I drove buses through the heart of the city, mostly on the graveyard shift. I liked the silence, the empty streets, the cool breeze through the cracked windows. The passengers were few and far between. Nurses, janitors, insomniacs, people like me who thrived in the dark hours. But one night changed everything. It was early February. Humid, with storm clouds curling low across the sky. I arrived at the depot a little before midnight and was assigned the final trip on Route 17. A stretch that cut across the city from the industrial south to the northern cemetery district. It was a long route with 34 stops. I remember clearly, I pulled out of the terminal at exactly 12:43 a.m. The first few stops were empty. No surprise. This late the city seemed abandoned. Streetlights flickered, dogs barked at shadows, and a soft drizzle began to fall, streaking the windshield. Then around the 5th stop she appeared. A woman. She stepped onto the bus without a sound. I remember thinking it was strange she didn't bring any water in with her, despite the rain. She wore an old-fashioned white dress, lace around the sleeves, and her long black hair clung wetly to her face. She had no shoes. No bag. She didn't say a word. Just stared at me with wide, distant eyes. Then she walked to the very back and sat down. I glanced at the rearview mirror, uneasy. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed forward. I drove. By the ninth stop I glanced again. She had moved up several rows. I hadn't heard her walk. No footsteps. No rustle of fabric. But there she was, now just behind the middle doors. I swallowed hard. By the 15th stop she was in the front row directly behind me. Still silent. That's when she leaned forward, just enough for her breath to reach my neck, and whispered, "You missed it." I jerked the wheel. No one else was on the road. No other cars. Just us. And her voice still echoing in my ears. I turned to look. The seat behind me was empty. I checked the mirror. She was gone. I pulled over, heart pounding. Stepped out into the rain, circled the bus. Nothing. Not a footprint. Not even water on the floor where she'd been sitting. I told myself I was tired. Maybe I dozed off. Maybe I imagined her. I drove on. But something had shifted. The city didn't look the same. The buildings seemed unfamiliar. The streets had no signs. No lights. Only fog and trees growing too close to the sidewalks, their branches clawing at the glass. Then, passengers started to appear. I didn't stop to pick them up. They were just there, sitting silently in the rows. A man in a torn suit, his face hidden by a hat soaked in blood. A child holding a burned teddy bear. A woman with hollow eyes, skin bluish and cracked like porcelain. None of them moved. None blinked. They just stared. At me. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. I tried to stop the bus. The brakes didn't respond. The steering locked. And then, I saw the cemetery gates. Rust-covered, swinging open on their own. The bus turned on its own. As we entered, the rain stopped. Everything became still. No wind. No sound. Only the passengers. And their eyes. The woman in white stood in the aisle. Her face was different now. No longer young. Her mouth stretched unnaturally wide. And she whispered, "You were always meant to drive them." I blacked out. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the terminal. Daylight. A police officer shook me awake in the driver's seat. "Where have you been?" he asked. I didn't understand. "It's Monday," he said. "You've been missing since Thursday." I quit that day. Burned my uniform. Never touched another bus again. But at night, the radio in my apartment crackles to life. And I hear the hiss of air brakes. And footsteps boarding. Once I found a white lace ribbon on my windowsill. Soaked with rain. And speckled with mud. Sometimes I dream of the route. And every time, I'm the only one alive on that bus.